Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin was a dictator who ruled the Soviet Union from the mid-1920s until his death in 1953. Stalin rose to power after the death of Vladimir Lenin, the founder of the Soviet Union, and he implemented a series of brutal policies to consolidate his control. Stalin's rule was characterized by totalitarianism, political repression, and the use of propaganda to maintain power. Stalin implemented a series of economic plans that led to rapid industrialization, but also caused widespread famine and hardship, particularly in rural areas. He also pursued aggressive policies in foreign affairs, including the annexation of several Eastern European countries after World War II. Stalin's rule was also marked by widespread purges and repression, during which millions of people were executed or sent to labor camps. This period, known as the Great Purge, was intended to eliminate perceived enemies of the state, but led to the deaths of millions of innocent people. Despite these atrocities, Stalin is also credited with leading the Soviet Union to victory in World War II, albeit at a high cost in human lives. Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong, often referred to as Chairman Mao, was a Chinese communist revolutionary who became the founding father of the People's Republic of China, PRC, which he ruled as the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, from its establishment in 1949 until his death in 1976. Mao is widely regarded as one of the most important figures in modern world history. Mao's rule was characterized by a series of ambitious social and economic campaigns, including the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, which had profound and often devastating effects on China's society, economy, and culture. Under Mao's leadership, China underwent significant social and political transformation, including the collectivization of agriculture, the industrialization of the economy, and the suppression of political dissent. His policies, however, also led to widespread famine, economic hardship, and political persecution, resulting in the deaths of millions of people. Idi Amin. Idi Amin was a Ugandan military officer and politician who ruled Uganda from 1971 to 1979. He came to power in a military coup, overthrowing the government of Milton Obote. Amin's regime was characterized by human rights abuses, political repression. He expelled Uganda's Asian minority, seized their businesses and properties, and engaged in brutal crackdowns on perceived opponents, leading to widespread violence and thousands of deaths. Amin's rule was also marked by a cult of personality, with grandiose titles such as His Excellency, President for Life, Field Marshal Al-Haji Dr. Idi Amin Dada, Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the seas, and Conqueror of the British Empire in Africa in general and Uganda in particular, being used to refer to him. And by the way, this is not a joke. In 1979, Amin's regime was overthrown by a coalition of Ugandan exiles and Tanzanian forces, leading to his exile first to Libya and later to Saudi Arabia, where he lived until his death in 2003. He was never brought to justice for his crimes. Pol Pot. Pol Pot was a Cambodian revolutionary and politician who led the Khmer Rouge regime from 1975 to 1979. During his time in power, he imposed a radical form of agrarian socialism, aiming to create an ideal communist society. Pol Pot's policies led to the deaths of an estimated 1.5 to 2 million people through execution, forced labor, and starvation. This period, known as the Cambodian Genocide, was characterized by brutal repression, the dismantling of urban areas, and the persecution of perceived enemies of the state. Pol Pot's regime was eventually overthrown by Vietnamese forces in 1979, leading to his retreat to the jungle, where he remained until his death in 1998. He was never brought to trial for his crimes, and I think he was happy with what he did. Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-il was the supreme leader of North Korea from 1994 until his death in 2011. He succeeded his father, Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea, and continued his father's authoritarian rule. During Kim Jong-il's leadership, North Korea faced severe economic difficulties, including famine and widespread poverty, while the regime maintained strict control over all aspects of society. The country also faced international isolation due to its nuclear ambitions and human rights abuses. Kim Jong-il's leadership style was characterized by a cult of personality, with propaganda promoting him as a near-divine figure. He also pursued a military-first policy, prioritizing the military over other sectors of society. Kim Jong-il's death in 2011 led to his son Kim Jong-un assuming power, continuing the family's dynastic rule over North Korea. The Austrian Painter. The Austrian painter, born in 1889 in Austria, rose to infamy as the dictator of Nazi Germany from 1933 to 1945. He initially pursued a career as an artist but failed to gain entry to art school. During World War I, the Austrian painter served in the German army and was deeply affected by Germany's defeat. He joined the National Socialist German Workers' Party, Nazi Party, in 1919, quickly becoming its leader due to his oratory skills and propaganda tactics. In 1923, the Austrian painter attempted a coup known as the Beer Hall Putsch, which failed, resulting in his imprisonment. While in prison, he wrote Mein Kampf, outlining his ideology of Aryan racial superiority and anti-Semitism. Upon his release, he restructured the Nazi Party to gain power through democratic means. The economic instability of the Great Depression in the late 1920s and early 1930s helped the Austrian painter gain popular support by promising economic revival, national rejuvenation, and the eradication of perceived enemies like Jews and communists. In 1933, the Austrian painter was appointed Chancellor of Germany. He quickly consolidated power, using the Reichstag fire as a pretext to pass the Reichstag Fire Decree, which suspended civil liberties and allowed for the arrest of political opponents. The Enabling Act followed, giving the Austrian painter dictatorial powers. He established a totalitarian regime employing propaganda, censorship, and state control over all aspects of life. Under the Austrian painter's rule, Germany rearmed and pursued an aggressive foreign policy, leading to the annexation of Austria and the Sudetenland. In 1939, the Austrian painter's invasion of Poland triggered World War II. During the war, his genocidal policies culminated in the Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews and millions of other victims, including Romani people, disabled individuals, political dissidents, and others deemed undesirable. The Austrian painter's military ambitions initially saw significant successes, but by 1943, the tide turned against Germany. The Allied forces steadily advanced, and by 1945, they were closing in on Berlin. Facing inevitable defeat, the Austrian painter committed suicide squad on April 30th, 1945. And that's all. Tell me if you want a second part, and if the answer is yes, tell me in the comments which dictators you want.